First thing I want to say is if anybody monetizes a video about 9/11, they're filth. The only reason I feel I have a right to an opinion is I served in the Persian Gulf in '87. And we killed some Iranians for laying mines. And the thing I remember is how scared the survivors looked, and some of them were badly wounded. One guy had his ass blew off. That's not funny. He had one of his butt cheeks blown completely off. I'm gonna have to edit the hell out of this thing, ain't I? One thing I remember is that we also rescued an Iraqi pilot that had been shot down. He'd been floating around in the water, I don't know how long. And we put him on a helicopter and sent him back to Iraq. And they sent that helicopter back loaded with flowers and cookies. And you could go down to the mess decks and there was a table covered with flowers and cookies. And the thing that kills me is that 10 years later we're at war with them and we're killing each other. Doesn't make a lot of sense. In 1986, I was a member of what they called the Line of Death Ops. Muammar Gaddafi said that any ships across this line would be destroyed, and of course, you know, you don't throw that kind of glove down in front of the Navy, so we bombed his residence and we killed a little girl. And I'll never get over that. We didn't know at the time. The man left his home and he left his baby girl there. And he's a bastard for doing that. I'm glad he's dead. The point I'm trying to make is I've paid my dues. I've lost friends. Funny story. No, it ain't. But anyway, we had a helicopter crash and killed 13 people. And when we were at sea back then, every night we had a prayer. And the ship's chaplain would give it. And if we had Marines on board, they let the Marines chaplain give prayer. They kind of alternated. And the day before the helicopter crash, the Marines' prayer was that everybody get home safe. And he was on the helicopter that crashed. And strangely enough, he was the only man they pulled out of the water that died. There were survivors, but he got too much salt water in his lungs and he died. And I kind of found that ironic. When we were in the Persian Gulf, we were doing minesweeping, trying to find mines mainly by bumping into them. And we got letters from school kids. Every mail call, I think we had it once a week, the guy would give us a few. And I loved reading those. They were so great. The girls always asked if we were married. And at the time, we felt like nobody even knew we were there. It wasn't covered a lot on the news. And sometimes you just felt alone. We had each other, and that was it. We were like we were on our own little world, just floating around out there. And the heat was god awful. And we had helicopters that almost crashed because there was so much sand in the air that it got into the engine. It wore the blades down till they actually started to come apart. And there's no way I can express the bravery of those pilots on the helicopters that kept going up in those kind of conditions. And we were trying to protect shipping because the Iranians were trying to attack any shipping vessel that was trying to help Iraq. And that was a really god-awful war. A lot of people don't realize how bad a war that was. Those two countries were using their children to sweep mines, personnel mines, on land. They would send their children across minefields to detonate mines. It was a low point in humanity's existence. I left the Navy in '88 and went on to do factory maintenance. And in 2001, when we were attacked, I was working in a factory that made batteries, who cares. Anyway, we gathered in the break room and watched the news on TV. And life had to go on. We kept working. But they paged maintenance to the front office. And I went up there and was sent into the boss's office, and the man was nearly in tears. And he said, "Y'all go out front and bring those flags down to half-mast." And of course we didn't have to ask why. But that was the point it really hit me. That was when I realized that this was serious. Just in case you want to know how weird life gets, I live near Waco, and we had to deal with David Koresh, and I had two brothers. One was a paramedic, and one was a fireman, and they both had to deal with that. That's crazy. Life is crazy. My brother that's a paramedic was a first responder when the ATF got shot up, and he helped carry the injured and dead away from there. And my younger brother was a fireman, and they were stopped from going and fighting the fire and had to sit there and watch kids burn because the authorities were afraid of the live ammunition that was detonated. But what I learned from that is there is nothing that you can say about our first responders that even comes close to touching what they do for us and the sacrifices they make. And I won't bore you with some of the horror stories I've heard from my brother about some of the things he was involved in while a paramedic. But those people deserve more respect than we can ever give them. And our firefighters, those people die to keep you safe. So next time you see one on the street, say thanks. That's all they need. Just say thanks. For all our first responders, for our paramedics, for our firemen, for our police, for my comrades in the military, for everybody that says that you can go to bed tonight and you're not going to get hurt on my watch. I wish I could render you a salute, but I can't because I'm not in uniform. And the only person who can give a salute out of uniform is the President of the United States. God bless America, and God keep everybody safe.